Bradley Metrock, CEO Project Voice, This Week in Voice Daily for Friday, July 16th. I'm not going to give this much preamble. I want to get straight into it. I want to show you what happens when we ask the mainstream voice assistants kind of a relevant question these days. Siri, what is critical race theory?
Here's some information.
Okay, so this is kind of in the corner of the screen. You can see it, just a bit of it. No explanation. It just gives a list of articles. Presumably, this is from a Google search. It doesn't say. All of the articles are generally positive, but it's unclear if that's intentional or if that's just random. So now I'm going to go to Alexa. So here's Alexa on my phone. Alexa, what is critical race theory?
According to Wikipedia, critical race theory is a body of legal scholarship and an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States that seeks to critically examine U.S. law as it intersects with issues of race in the U.S. and to challenge mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice.
Okay, so this pulled straight from Wikipedia. Let's keep going down our hit parade. Hey, Google, what is critical race theory?
According to Wikipedia, critical race theory is a body of legal scholarship and an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States that seeks to critically examine U.S. law as it intersects with issues of race in the U.S. and to challenge mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice.
Same thing. Alexa, Google Assistant, same thing. They're giving us Wikipedia. Finally, let's check Bixby. What is critical race theory?
Critical race theory is a body of legal scholarship and an academic movement of civil rights scholars and activists in the United States that seeks to critically examine U.S. law as it intersects with issues of race in the U.S. and to challenge mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice.
By the time we've heard that definition for the third straight time, I don't know if it's better or worse. So 3 of the 4 mainstream voice assistants give us Wikipedia's definition for critical race theory. Siri takes, I think, what's unambiguously a more lazier approach and just, hey, here's a bunch of articles. No explanation, no nothing. Here's a bunch of articles. You figure it out. So Siri clearly has work to do. So the question now becomes, is providing Wikipedia's answer a good approach? Is it the best approach? Is it a terrible approach? I don't know. I'm going to get into Wikipedia in a second, but it's important to note we have witnessed, the people watching voice technology and conversational AI, we have witnessed how this came about. We've reported on it with This Week in Voice over the years. In my mind, one of the critical points for this was, it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And if I can find the article, I'll link to it in the description of the video. 3 or 4 years ago, more like 4 years ago, when Alexa was coming on the scene, somebody actually based in Nashville got the idea to ask Alexa, who is Jesus Christ? And when that person asked Alexa that, the answer was pretty unsatisfactory, and it set off a whole rigmarole. People got mad. Well, some additional time went by. I think about a year, 9 months to a year went by, and we ended up covering another story on This Week in Voice about how people on the left asked Alexa, who is Hillary Clinton? And some sort of unflattering answer came forth, and people got mad again. it was about at that point in time when it kind of became best practice to just send it to Wikipedia. Somebody asked about this stuff, send it to Wikipedia. Because keep in mind, these companies have people, and Amazon especially at that point in time had people whose entire job was to write these responses, to anticipate what questions would be asked based on popular culture and politics and things, and to write the responses ahead of time. Well, as it turned out, a safer and more rational seeming approach is, you know what, just get Wikipedia's answer. That way we have plausible deniability. We're one layer removed. So you can't get that mad at us because we're just telling you what Wikipedia says. So here we are, critical race theory. Years later, Google's on the scene now, Bixby's on the scene now. Siri is better than it used to be, theoretically. And you ask, arguably, what's the hottest question today? What is critical race theory? And you get these canned answers. Everybody's the same. And they're giving you Wikipedia. Now let's go to Wikipedia and take a look at this. So here is the Wikipedia entry for critical race theory. Now, I was curious to see who wrote this. It could be any number of types of people that wrote this that might cause a reasonable person to question whether or not it's a good idea to send all the traffic coming from Alexa, Google Assistant, and Bixby to this page. Well, as it turns out, when you really dig in here, this page is under a lot of controversy. There's people, and it's mainly the left, arguing with the left about what the page should say. And people saying this is garbage, this is the academic ivory tower equivalent of this is garbage, this is not reliable, this is not based in fact, or whatever people are saying. So as it turns out, this uncontroversial approach, seemingly, is actually quite controversial. And there's a lot of people who, if they found out that we're sending, educating people asking what critical race theory is, sending them to this page, would be very upset. Many on the far left, the people on the right don't have a strong opinion. They don't want to talk about it, period. People on the far left, clearly from reading the comments that sit underneath the page, there's controversy here. So the ultimate bottom line is, what's the right answer? I don't know if there is a right answer. This is a big question that big tech is going to have to wrestle with, and you're not going to please everybody. In fact, you're going to make a lot of people mad every time. So you've got to carve out a philosophy. And right now, the philosophy is just send people to Wikipedia. Is that going to work for the long term? My feeling is absolutely not. And that some other solution is going to have to be engineered. But what that is, I'm not certain. It's an interesting problem. And I think that it's a fundamental problem for voice assistants, these mainstream ones, because people are looking for a reason not to adopt the technology. They're looking for a reason to not embrace big tech and to not use big tech's technology. And this is a convenient one. So it's worth watching. Every now and then we'll do these sorts of things. I'm actually inclined to have this kick off a larger study on what these voice assistants would do and say in response to a number of popular terms. Anti-racist, for example. If I were to say, what is that to all these voice assistants, or affirmative action, or any number of other terms associated with racist behavior or racism, or the study of that. Might do it. I'm sort of evaluating that, but for now, this is interesting enough just to sort of consider and ponder what if this is not the right approach, what we ought to be doing instead. For this week in Voice Daily, thank you for watching. Until next time.